Let's go.
Gotcha.
Hey, what's up, guys? Today, we've got a very special guest on the podcast. I want to introduce you to all-star. You're going to know this guy. He's going to be sticking around. He's a young entrepreneur, oil tycoon, real estate investor, wholesaler. You name it, this guy's done it. Very excited to have Brent Franklin on the show with me and Tim. And wanted to introduce you guys to him because, like I said, I came across this guy just a little while ago there in Destin, Florida, about a month ago. It just clicked. And, he told us a story on what he's working on and how he took the principle of wholesaling real estate to the oil business. So he's got an incredible story. Brent, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, brother. Man, I hope all is well. And I'm loving the background on the green screen. Mine's actually live right here from my penthouse over in River Oaks here in Houston. So it wasn't always like this. And, I appreciate you guys having us on here. I know you wanted to do maybe some Q&As. I don't know if you want me to give a little background on me or, where I'm from or.
Most definitely. You got a crazy story, man. Yeah. If you could just talk about that real quick.
Sure. Yeah, man. So, I feel like everybody that's made it some point in life, they always have to give their backstory. They're always selling off their past. And today's more of just to kind of show you what we're doing today and in our future. Like I said, it wasn't always like this. Grew up in Conroe, Texas, 9th grade dropout. I just did not like school. It was just boring for me. I got every job I ever applied for. Fast forward, ended up in the Navy as a police officer. I don't know how that happened, but it was a great time. Got out, worked on an oil rig up in North Texas in Odessa. Didn't even know what I was doing, but I got the job and dropped out, started a landscape business, took it to a construction company, took that construction company and ran into a guy that was flipping houses with a Homevestor franchise. And then, got into flipping houses and wholesaling houses. Made $92,000 on my first assignment. So I don't tell you to brag. I tell you because it takes some skill and a little bit of luck, to be able to clear those kind of numbers. Became an expert in real estate, probably over the next 4, 5, 6 years, and bought just over 400 houses. And whenever I say bought, I mean we actually closed. So we struck a check. So a lot of people, they say they flip, houses, but that, the backstory. Everybody's somebody. So I burnt myself out on construction, man. I didn't have any knowledge of how to run a business. I was just doing everything by myself. School of hard knocks, running around, flipping these houses like crazy, doing these construction jobs for crazy investors, and thinking that everybody's going to look at it the same way I look at it. And I got really, really, really misunderstood, really burnt out. And really just my perception of people who I looked up to in the industry, it just changed. I thought that there was so many good people out there, and you realize there's actually a lot of really bad people in this world, and everybody's fending for themselves. So I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to just dial down the company. I don't need to make $1 gazillion. We always, we as investors go into things, we want to look for the opportunity to make a capital gain on an investment. We want to, plant our money somewhere and hope that it grows and understand that, there's a potential that it won't, right? There's a risk factor in everything. So I learned that I like to lend money. So I started lending my money out, and I loaned my money out to this guy, and I was looking at his financials. He had all these houses that were free and clear. So I'm just doing hard money. I'm not a licensed RMLO. I'm just lending money on, rental properties or business purpose, right? So this guy has all these houses free and clear. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do with this money? He's like, oh, I take it and I go and I take these wells and I rework it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, so you own oil rigs? And he's like, no, wells. And I'm like, okay, so you own oil wells. And there's a big joke that I laugh at every time because, people walk up and they say, hey, my buddy Brent owns oil rigs. We do own oil rigs, but there's a difference that people got to understand. There are wells and there are rigs. Rigs are the machines that are used to drill the wells, and then you have the well. And basically, an oil well is a piece of pipe in the ground where they go in, you set up a rig, they drill down, and then once they drill down to their desired depth, they run in with a machine called an electronic logging tool, and it takes and it logs the well, and it actually shows you if there's oil and gas in the well, and that's kind of how we can see into the ground on what you would call an exploration drill. So this guy was showing me these logs with all these wells that had oil and gas that was left behind from other companies. Big companies would come in, they drill these wells, and they would produce one major zone, and maybe it had a big reserve amount where the zones up hole or at the different layers in the earth, it wasn't enough for them to invest that kind of money to recomplete the well. So what he would do is he would go into the wells and he would put a plug and he would come up and he would recomplete the wells in a different zone and turn it on and essentially have a brand new oil and gas well. And that's what he was doing with his money. But you can't see down there as good as technology is. So sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't. You could see that the oil and gas was there, but you could have other potential problems in the well. So I said, okay, I don't give a shit about any of that. I wanted to know how he was making so much profit, because I would look at his account and one month he would have $56. The next month he'd have $3 million. And I'm like, this guy's got to be selling drugs or something. Like, how do you get these kind of returns? Like, I understand buying a house, for 40 cents, 50 cents on the dollar, 70 cents, less your repairs. I get that. But how the hell is somebody going to give you a $3 million well for $10 for what they call plugging liabilities? So I said, okay. I said, how much money do you need? He's like, well, I need 20 grand. If you lend me 20 grand, I'll pay you back 20 grand. And I'm like, well, I can't put that kind of lien on a house because then I'm going to break the usury law, right? You have so much interest you can acquire real estate back. Long story short, did a buddy deal with them, gave him 20 grand, he paid him back 40. Gave him 100, he paid him back 120. And I mean, short-term learns, I'm like, damn, this is great. Well, he calls me up and says, hey, I've got this well that I sold a year ago for $1.2 million. You can buy it right now for $650,000 and we can flip it again for 1.2. These people that bought it have no clue how to manage this well. It's called operating, but it's basically property management. I said, can I call them? He's like, yeah. And remind you, I didn't know very to little, none about oil and gas other than I worked on a rig and I didn't really know what the hell we were doing. So I call up this seller and, we just refer to as real estate. It was another oil and gas company. They had the well. So I call up this seller and I say, hey, why do you want to sell this well? And they're like, oh, well, it doesn't fit our portfolio. I'm like, well, we don't want it. And they're like, we don't want it. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, we don't want it. He's like, okay. I'm like, but if you had to sell it, I'd be happy to wire you $185,000 for it today. So it's like, I took an extremely low ball offer. I was like, I don't want it, but this is what you take. He's like, well, take it. I was like, holy shit. And this guy had already told me before I called him, if I get it for anything, if I get it for 500, it's a steal. Right. So I ended up buying the well. We ended up turning around and selling it. And I look at the cash flow on this well and it's making $90,000 a month. Now, where the hell can you buy a fucking house? Excuse my French. Where can you buy a house for under 200 grand that's making $90,000 a month? Where?
You can't.
You can't. So these numbers sound like fictional, right? They're like, wow, that's crazy. What he failed to tell me was, yeah, I was making $90,000 a month, but it had $60,000 a month in overhead. And if gas prices are to lower down, you're going to be paying to own that well. So I didn't understand this because they had just come out of $1.60 gas and it was finally at $3 where it was making a profit. So I bought the well and I sold it off and I learned the very, very hard way about oil and gas. I learned, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't invest in this, this one particular item. Well, after about a year and a half of working with this guy and me taking all of my profit that I sold off that well and losing about $500,000 of my money and getting beat out of paperwork by the guy writing bad leases, by the guy incorrectly reporting my gas off my well, I was sitting there, 2019, just depressed, stressed out. Real estate was running slow for me. I'd made a killing on this. I had big hopes. And all the stuff that I'd worked for to help this guy out, he was literally fucking me the whole time. And I had no idea about it because I was oblivious to it. But it was the best education I could ever have bought because I learned so much about how to acquire these things and how long they last and how to get reserve reports and how to fix them and what to do and what not to do. I was sitting there one day and I said, you know what? I can sit here and dwell on this or I can do something about it. I called up that company that sold me that well and I said, hey, do you guys have any more wells that you'd be interested in selling? And the guy's like, yeah. I said, well, how do you typically sell it? He's like, well, we either sell half of it or we sell all of it. And I learned about the wells and I said, well, do you know that these wells are real property? They're 1031 exchangeable. They're what we would call fee simple real estate. And that means that they're real property. And the leases is what I'm talking about. So I showed him a model where a real estate investor, what would you be happy getting on your money a year? What's the typical? On a rental, it's what? 1.2% to 1.5% a month. And on hard money, it's potentially they'd like to get 2 points and 12%. Right?
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah. So in oil and gas, some of these wells pay extremely high cash flow. The difference is a lot of them deplete. They come on really strong and they die down. And the way that real estate guys look at it is they're pretty conservative. So I said, let me get this straight. The way it is right now is people take an oil and gas lease, they sell off or they raise money for a well, and they sell off. They can either sell the lease as long as they own it, or they can raise money. Now, when you get into raising money, I'm sure you guys are familiar. There's a lot of SEC guidelines that go on. You have to deal with accredited investors. You've got to file what's either called a Reg A, a Reg B, a Reg C, a Reg D, 506C, Reg D. There's crowdfunding. There's a lot of stuff that could get you in a lot of trouble if you don't know what you're doing, right? When it comes to raising money. Well, what I realized is that you don't need to file a money raise if you're selling real estate in the state of Texas. If you guys go and buy $10 million worth of apartment complexes with hard money and you put it into an entity, right? And you start selling off a portion of those apartment complexes that are out there and you're transferring the deed over, you don't need a license requirement to sell real estate. You need a real estate license to put things on the MLS. But if you own property, there's nothing that stops you from selling property, right? What I learned is if you own an oil and gas lease, you can sell that oil and gas lease to anybody and they're buying the lease. They're not buying wells. You're not raising money. So when I figured this out, I said, man, what if I was to take a package of wells that lasted a really long time, things that are just going to go forever, that have already kind of died down? Some of these wells go for 10, 20, 50, 100 years, bro. And then some of them come on and they go up and, overnight. You're able to look at the due diligence of these wells and these properties and see the formations that they're in. Are they a sandstone, a shale? Is it oil? Is it natural gas? Is it being pulled hard? Lots of due diligence goes behind it. So I basically dug in and started buying these leases and selling them off conservatively, off conservative numbers to real estate guys. And the returns beat real estate all day long because I was doing this at $1.80 natural gas and $32 oil. And I said, okay, we're going to use $2 gas and we're going to use $40 oil for our profitability. Have you guys looked at commodity prices today?
Crazy.
No. Commodity prices, oil's at over $100 a barrel, and natural gas that was projected as at a 14-year all-time high. So if we were profitable at $2 gas and at $40 oil, what do you think's happening to our company right now? And all these little operators that are out there, they don't know how to get money because they don't know how to raise money. They don't understand leverage. They don't understand private equity. They don't understand how to use a self-directed IRA, a Roth IRA, a 401k, because they're all old school oil and gas guys who they've been lifers on it. They don't have the knowledge and the background of a real estate guy. So when I get in there and I understand principal, overhead, good debt, bad debt, cash flow, appreciation, depreciation, and massive tax benefits, I was able to build a combination of this and take it to real estate guys who are making a ton of money and say, hey guys, you guys are wholesaling the shit out of properties and you're making a little bit on your rental. Well, most people know that you're not buying a rental for rental income. Some people do, but they need somewhere to park their money because they want to beat this 40% inflation that people don't tell you about that we really have. So right now, what you have going on is a perfect combination of a natural gas boom and a oil boom. Okay. You have a war going on, which everybody knows historically, wars drive oil prices up. You have trade war going on where you have a country that produces so much oil, so much cheaper than us, that they're having huge issues right now. And they're dealing with other people that they don't even want to trade in our US dollar anymore. Then you've got this thing that's in our White House, is not a president. I don't know what you want to call it, but he's shutting down things. Mr. Biden. First thing he does is he goes in and he jumps in. And do you care if I keep digging into this stuff? Okay.
Absolutely.
So Mr. Biden, what does he do? And who backs him in the beginning? Well, Warren Buffett jumps in and says, we're going to back Joe Biden in his campaign. You know, we're a billionaire. So Warren Buffett backs Biden. First thing Biden does is what? He shuts down that Keystone pipeline. Yeah. Now, these numbers might not be to the T. You might have some engineer that does this every single day, and I might be off by a couple cents. And for that, I'm not really apologetic. I'm not here for that guy. I'm here to give kind of a general overview of what's going on and how people can get involved and change and hopefully make a capital gain like we're making and like you're making and like several other real estate guys are making. So Biden comes into office, shuts down the Keystone pipeline. When oil and gas travel through a pipeline, it's much more efficient cost-wise for it to be exported like that, okay? If it doesn't go through a pipeline, it's typically hauled through either trucks or rail car, okay? If you look at the pipeline getting shut down, that means if it gets shut down, where's it going to go? It's going to go to rail car, right? And who owns the railway road? Berkshire Hathaway. And who owns Berkshire Hathaway? Warren Buffett. So you're paying $10 a barrel to transfer oil through pipeline or $30 a barrel to transport it through rail car. And all of a sudden, Warren Buffett's making a killing. Oil prices start to go up. And guess who pays for that shit? You at the gas pump, the consumer. Okay? So what you're going to watch right now is you're going to watch total economic disaster coming up. Releasing the reserves that we have is a stupid idea. Shutting down federal drilling is a stupid idea. It doesn't really affect us because we're Texas and we have state leases. Okay, so it's not going to really bug us. It shuts down the big guys. The lack of investment for lending on banks, the $300+ billion of overinvestment where any swinging dick could walk to the bank and say, hey, Mr. Wells Fargo, I got a lease over here, 300,000 acres, and we got oil on it. I want to borrow $150 million and go drill a bunch of wells. And I'll drill the first 3. And then once I do it, I want you to give me all the money. And they brought them on like a freight train, right? They brought on the Eagle Ford Shale. You can look these up, Austin Chalk. And these wells came on like freight trains and they died. And then we overproduced oil too quickly and we crashed our oil market and everybody went belly up with a shitload of debt and went bankrupt. And you just watched this over the past 7, 8, 10 years. Well, where we're at right now is there's a lot of stuff that's already drilled with behind pipe potential. There was wells that were doing really, really good that are left behind all over the state. This is the 2008 real estate market of oil and gas. Everybody for the past several years has gone broke. They're barely holding on by a thread. They're exhausted and they're burnt out. Banks aren't lending on it. So you've got me who's coming in with a fresh slate and I'm leasing these leases with all of these wells on it that have existing production and lots of upside, room for new drills, room for reworks. So what I'm doing is very, very different than everybody else. I'm not trying to sell people, buy a lease and sell to people. Well, I'm taking a package of leases. I'm looking at the current cash flow that's already done on them. I'm being conservative on my numbers and I'm using $3 and $4 gas and $50 oil. And I'm basically selling them out cash flow on these leases. And they're doing it mostly for the tax deduction purposes. So if you come in and I've got a box with 25 wells in it and 10 of them are working, right? And it says, hey, as the price is right now, you're going to make about 25% a year conservatively off what we have when you buy this much of this lease at this price. What I do is I take the profits off that lease and I go drill my own wells and I go turn my wells on. And when they come on, we test them and we flow them. And guess what happens? That person doesn't own 10 wells. They own a portion of the entire lease. So now their cash flow goes up and we did it off of our profits. So now their payout is quickly. Well, guess what happens? Once they meet their payout, which is typically set at 25 to 33% a year, a 3 to 4 year payout. Once they meet that payout, everything going forward is straight profit, right? And we base these numbers super conservatively. So if you're on a 4-year payout based off of $50 oil and $3 gas, what happens whenever you're at $7 gas and $100 oil? Your payout is cut in half. So you're going to wait 24 months, get all your money back, right? And then that money that's coming in is active income, but you get to depreciate it because it's active income. But it's acting passively because you're not doing anything. So what I've been doing is taking guys that have cash, is sitting there, plugging them into leases, taking basically house money and going and fixing shit, but we're not promising them anything on the reworks. We're saying, hey, I want you to look at what we're going to give you now, and this is what we're going to base your return off of. But man, we've been fucking rocking and rolling. We hit 4 wells. We drilled 4 wells literally this last year. All 4 of them hit. They're killing it right now. You know, we have less than $1 million deal that's making us multiple 6 figures profit. We have wells that we've gone in and dumped $30,000 in, set a plug, shot holes in a zone that are making $70,000, $80,000 a month. We don't want to sell our assets right now. We want people to partner with us, buy into the lease, and then be able to hold it. Well, then we realized the bigger problem. We bought so much assets and we sold it off so cheap. How do you make profit whenever you're giving away all your profit to your investors? We're making our investors too much money. So what we did is we created a friends and family fund, and we became on the board of directors, a general partner with a $50 million Reg D fund called AWP Diversified Fund. If you're an accredited investor, you're able to go and join this fund. And this fund is diversified in oil and gas, real estate, alternatives, things that you couldn't typically get in. They're in everything on it. If you want to buy in directly to oil and gas leases, we still do that, but we're scaling so fast that we said, hey, why don't we just get a group of our friends and family, like, yourself, and let's put together a little fund where we can hold all of the assets. And instead of you getting your 10% of the well that you bought, what we do is we direct 75 to 80% of our income off of all of our properties that are in the fund to the investors. And when they meet pay, we do a flip-flop where you're still getting 30% of the income. Prices are continuing to skyrocket and go up. And the model that we're building right now is really unseen in this industry because the people are stuck in their ways. They're not willing to change. One of my favorite people, Tillman Fertitta, who owns this massive hotel right behind me called the Post Oak, he said, I'm able to buy and acquire businesses and make them super successful multi-million-dollar companies and billion-dollar companies because I'm not afraid to implement change. And that's where everybody goes. The life cycle of a wave, the wave goes up and it goes down eventually. Now, some of them are really long. Some of them are really short. That's business lives and cycles, man. And right now, you're watching what I've been preaching for the past 3 years. I've got the proof of concept. You're watching us come out of that. Oh, there's no good waves, that close to shore. And there really is. So we've got probably a 3 to 4 year window to really, really hammer this hard. But the problem is our opportunities are drying up because the higher gas prices, the higher oil prices, the more people are going to start getting financed and they're going to go do the same shit. But the way that we're building it is you're not going to make $100 billion with us. You're going to receive some benefits, but ours is more on a conservative model where you're not going to be that person getting 56 cents for the rest of your life after you invest your life savings into one well. You put your life in one basket. We're building you the variety pack of capital on this, and it's absolutely great. So did you have any questions for me? I do got to hop on another call, and I don't want to go on a tangent, but I try to give you just the overview. I know you probably got a few questions. I try to touch base on a few of the things.
Yeah, well, one of the biggest questions was what is your biggest tips for getting started in this business?
Getting started in this business. Okay, so that's like getting started in real estate, right? There's a lot of different avenues. If you're just an investor that want to get in, even if it's not with us, I would recommend finding oil and gas leases that you can go to energyfunders.com and you can participate in buying into oil and gas leases You can also go to risepetroleum.com, type your information in, and we have packets that we send out. But find a way to participate in working interest, okay? You're going to want to look at that word, working interest. You're going to want to find out how you can participate in oil and gas leases.
Fantastic. And then as far as getting in contact with you, obviously Rise Petroleum. So if they want to get more information.
Fill out, it's very simple. It's 4 or 5 lines. You fill it out and it's good to go. And you can contact somebody from our office will contact you. And you know what I tell man? What I tell you, hey, grab a ticket, come get in. We'll take you out and we'll show you this stuff in person. It's badass to really see it, to go out in the field and see an old piece of pipe out there that's been out there for 60 years, go in with a truck, pull the trigger with a gun, and then all of a sudden you got oil and gas flowing out of the ground going to the sales meter. It's really, really a super fun business model. And, man, the real estate guys have absolutely loved it.
Man, that's fantastic.
I mean, honestly, this was like one of the most amazing things I've thought about. I always thought about oil as far as like stocks. You know, you can buy Marathon Oil, you can buy, you know, BP, you can buy whatever. But I never actually considered how easy it could be. I'm not saying easy, but how attainable it could be to actually own oil wells. And
it's easy. You hit the nail on the head. It's easy. It just takes money. And you know, it's funny because I get so many people that vet me and they're like, well, is it risky? I'm like, fuck yeah, everything is risky. But
literally everything's risky. Driving a car is risky.
With their money in the bank as paper that's worthless with nothing backing it while they keep printing it, because you can't outsave it. That house that you're saving for is going to be, your dollar's going to be less. You can't make it that fast. They're printing it faster than you can. Anything you're saving for today, you're not going to get if you're just making the money that you're making today. You learn that money is the ultimate tool. You've got to plant that shit. And even if you plant 10 seeds, you plant your only $10,000, 1,000 here, 1,000 there. Even if you plant it somewhere you never imagined it to grow. Have you ever drove down the road and seen a fucking tree in the middle of a sidewalk? It's like that seed ended up there. And I guarantee if you were to take bets on it and said, this is going to be a beanstalk one day, the majority of people would have laughed at you. And now it's sitting there, you know, in the heart of the richest subdivision out there. You know, that's the same thing with your money. You got to start plugging it into places that it can make a capital gain, because I guarantee you it's sitting there rotting from the bottom. It looks like a good pile of fruit. You're getting excited. You're going to have plenty to eat. You got to take a bite, chop that shit up, plant it, because it is going to be rotten on the bottom. You're going to be really, really disappointed that your pile is high but worthless.
Right on, right on. All right, brother man, how can they follow you? Real $1 Million Closer on Instagram. You got Facebook,
Yeah,
YouTube.
follow me, Real $1 Million Closer on Instagram, man. We post a lot of content. You know, our YouTube channel's up, and we've recorded so much content. You know, we're not out here with these big ass hype videos trying to sell a bunch of bullshit like you see online with all these wannabe gurus. I tell people, if you're skeptical, get in the car, show up. We'll take you in. We'll show you out there. You can do your due diligence. And I mean, a lot of it's public information, but if they want to follow me, Real $1 Million Closer on Instagram, you can see. And we got that blue check coming. We got verified, so
you'll
see that.
Congratulations.
You know, for whatever the little Facebook lovers and Instagram lovers, you know, they like that verification badge. You know, so we must be doing something right. Also, just Google our company, and if you want to verify anything I'm saying, you can go to the Railroad Commission, Texas Railroad Commission on Google, and you can type in Rise Petroleum Investments, and it pulls our entire portfolio. Everything that you want to research is completely public data, from production to well locations to ownership, etc. It's just like real estate.
Fantastic, brother man. I really appreciate you on. Hopefully this will take some time for me trying to explain what you're about and what you're doing, how you're doing what you're doing. Really inspiring stuff, man, for such a young entrepreneur. Really excited to have you on, and maybe have you on.
Let me tell you, man, 32. We're on the back nine of this life, you know. So
yeah. Well, let's keep it strong, brother man. I really appreciate the time.
Absolutely, man. Y'all have a blessed day. And like I said, people are going to have a ton of questions. Man, we have a lot of really, really good content coming out to be able to explain it to them. So, you know, like I said, the best thing to do is literally just, if they're really interested in it, you know, just either say fuck it and go for it, or hop in the truck and come do some more due diligence. But this train is taking off, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah, don't wait too long, guys. Don't wait too long. This is the real deal right here.
All right, brother.
We'll see you next time, brother man. Have a great day.
And hopefully I'll have you on my podcast next.
Right on. I'll be down.
Peace. All right, bro. Have a good one.